Good morning, Team Alabama. Here is Chapter 11, Part 2. And we know that Dad is at the Alice Pond Show. That's where we are today. We're on page 78. On the screen appears an image of Earl Detrow. I have seen him before, but I am curious about his appearance now. Since he's been in prison, luckily my eyes are focused on him. He is sitting in front of a gray wall in an orange-colored inmate's jumpsuit. I can't tell how tall he is, but he looks about the same size as Dad. His face is pleasant, his hair is cut quite short, and he's mostly bald on top. His left ear sticks out a little further than the right, and otherwise he's a regular looking with a mild gap-toothed smile. He sure doesn't look like any murderer I've ever seen in movies or on TV crime shows, just the opposite. He looks like a next-door neighbor, a guy you'd see out throwing his lawn or mowing his lawn or raking his leaves, Mr. Average. The way the prison room is set up, Dad is sitting next to Earl. Their metal folding chairs almost touch, but both men face more toward the camera than toward one another. They are framed on screen from the ankles up. They look comfortable, if not quite relaxed. Dad, tell us about your life here, Earl. Earl, well, it's probably not like you'd expect it to be. Most guys keep pretty much to themselves, and if you want to know about bad stuff, you can find out about it. And if you want to stay out of people's way and just mind your own business, you can do that. That's been my approach so far. It's sort of like scout camp, only there's a lot more tattoos. Dad smiles and then pauses and grows serious. We came to talk about your son Earl and about Colin and what happened to him. Are you ready to discuss that? Earl swallows hard, stares down at his hands crossed in his lap. It's hard, but yeah, I'm ready. Dad, why did you kill him, Earl? Earl, nobody will ever understand this. I'm not saying it to be understood. I'm saying it because it's true and because you have a son like Colin. Maybe it'll help you and other people with children like Colin. I don't feel now, and I will never feel, that I killed or murdered Colin. I did what I did with my son to end his suffering. Earl pauses a moment and takes several slow, deep breaths. He looks up at Dad, and the camera slowly closes in on his face. If you love your child enough, and you see him suffering horribly, and you know both medically, because of what the docs tell you, and in your heart that his condition is hopeless and that his life is nothing but pain and agony, if you love him enough, what do? Colin was helpless. It was like he was in the hands of invisible demons whose only reason for existing was to torture him. A tear slowly slips out of the corner of Earl Detrow's left eye. He wipes it off his cheek with the back of his right hand. It had to stop. I didn't care about what the laws or the cops or anybody else had to say about it. Heck, they didn't know. They weren't here watching Colin. They weren't in his head or in my heart. I didn't care about what could happen to me. It had to stop. I loved Colin. I still love him, and I'll always love him. Ending his suffering was all I cared about. I did that, and whatever anybody else thinks of me, I feel that what I did is between me and Colin and his mother and our God. Dad, if you had to do it over again, would you do it? Earl smiles a little. I guess I'm supposed to say, no, sir, I've learned my lesson. I mean, I would like to get out of this place someday, so I'm supposed to say that I know what I did was wrong. But the truth is, I'd do it again this second. I'd do it every day they let me out if I saw Colin suffering. Yeah, I'd do it again. Dad, what if next week they invented a new medication or a new procedure that could have cured Colin? How would you live with yourself if that happened? Earl, well, the docs said that wasn't going to happen, but if it did, how would I feel? How will I feel if at the end of my life I'm cast down into for all eternity for what I did? Earl smiles sadly and looks away from the camera. He pauses and takes a sip of a glass of water on a table off camera and then sets the glass back down, and he takes a deep breath. You know, when I did it, I put the pillow over Colin's face and held it there, not hard so as to hurt him, but just enough to cut off the air. I held the pillow and I prayed as hard as I could. I hoped God might intervene, like he did with Abraham when he provided a ram and spared Isaac. Only I wasn't praying for God to stop me. I was praying that Colin wasn't suffering. He did struggle against me. He didn't struggle against me at all. He was real still and quiet the whole time. And Earl pauses again and breathes slowly and steadying himself. I prayed for God to let Colin's suffering end and to take care of him for me. When it was over, when I felt Colin go, he lay there like an angel, so beautiful, and I could tell that for the first time in his life, I knew in my heart that for the first time in his life, he was without pain. I looked into his eyes and I saw that he was gone, and for the first time ever, I saw peace in his face. Earl looks up and tears are streaming down both his cheeks. He has finished talking. His face, although tear-streaked, looks calm and peaceful. He sits straight and with dignity and quiet pride. Dad, thank you for talking to us, Earl. That's enough for today. The camera clicks off and the screen goes blank. We are suddenly back to Alice Pons, who stands quietly for a moment and then speaks, her voice full of emotion. We'll be right back. Our family room is utterly silent, and I can hear Mom breathing, and I see Paul and Cindy speechless, staring vacantly at the TV as the lady on the screen talks about the bright whiteness of her wash. No one looks at me. I think about Earl and Colin and about Dad and me. What good is love if it isn't about putting somebody else ahead of yourself? I don't think Earl was playing God when he killed Colin. He believed that loving his son meant ending the kid's suffering by any means necessary. Earl's action and Dad's decision to study it convinced me more than ever that Dad is still working out what he should do with me. Dad knows that Earl loved his son just like Dad loves me. I have this feeling, a gut feeling, so real that I can't deny it, that right now Dad is trying to find a reason, any reason, not to kill me. But before Alice Pons and her astonished audience and my dad and my sister and another commercial and all the rest can come back, the seizure that I fought off a little while ago charges back into my head, and there's no stopping it this time. And as it begins, its march up my spine and down my arms and across my forehead. Crackle, crackle, crackle. That's all the Alice Pons I'm going to get today. Okay, crackle, crackle, crackle. What's that literary device? All of you that said onomatopoeia, that's awesome. That's about the 5th or 6th time he's given us an example of that. And then let's add some facts that we know now. Okay, Dad went on Alice Pons. He interviewed Earl Détreau for the world to see. Earl Détreau killed his son. He felt it was the right thing to do. And Sean thinks Dad is wrestling with that idea right now. What else can you add? What are some things you know? What are some questions you might have? Why did Earl Détreau go through with it? Do you think it was the right thing to do? That's a question you could ask. Will Dad kill Sean? Will somebody stop him? Do Cindy and Paul know what Dad's thinking now? Does Mom understand what's going on? Those are all questions you can ask. And then there were some vocab words that we added today too, and there was one right at the very end that I thought was a good one, astonished. Okay? Her astonished audience, shocked. Okay, astonished means shocked. So make sure next to the word you put the definition too. If you need to go back and look some of those up, that's fine. Okay, so we should be finishing up our poems. We should be finishing up our autobiography. And we should be finishing up our facts and our questions and our vocab. All of those things are in the side tab on assignments if you need an example. Hopefully you're going back and looking through that. And if that's not enough of an example, email me and ask me for some help, or send it to me in your rough draft version and say, okay, this is what I have so far. What do you think? What else should I do? Or you may always email or call. Have a great rest of your day, Team Alabama. We'll see you tomorrow.